Welcome to ProjectME, the podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Carter, the founder of ProjectME, multimillionaire entrepreneur, former TV newscaster, money-making expert, female empowerment speaker, and self-proclaimed office supply addict. My mission is to take the mystery out of making big money. Every week on ProjectME, the podcast, I'll share success tips, strategies, and stories from other entrepreneurs, experts, and millionaires, showing you exactly how you can achieve your most exceptional life. Now let's get to it. Exciting announcement for all of my listeners. I've officially opened my exclusive group, the ProjectME Passive Income Posse, to the public. This group is by application only, so we can keep the group high vibe and spend our time, energy, and expertise only helping those of you who truly want massive success and impact. You get live weekly trainings from me, special guest coaches, and direct access to me and my business partner for all of your questions. To learn more and apply, go to projectmewithtiffany.com, click on Work With Me, and select ProjectME Posse. And of course, any questions, feel free to DM me at ProjectME with Tiffany. Welcome to ProjectME with Tiffany Carter, the podcast and posse. I'm your host, Tiffany, and the goal today is to help you release some of those money blocks that have been holding you back from being able to call in and attract the money that you so badly desire and that you deserve. It's just amazing how powerful of an energy money is. It can really piss people off. It can really make people upset. It can bring even the grumpiest of people the most joy. It can make people do horrible things in order to get more for it. It can make people do incredible things in order to get more for it. It can spark movements and incredible multi-billion-dollar businesses. It's just such a powerful energy. And these money beliefs, which then in turn end up being our blocks, everyone has them. Everybody, including myself. Some of those blocks and beliefs are easier to release than others. And then there's some of them that are multi-generational. They've been passed down from, your parents and their parents and your parents' parents, right? And in my case, and you guys know I like using a personal example in order to paint a picture for you guys on how these money blocks end up being sneaky and can prevent us from calling in the very things that we want. So I grew up actually well off. So we were probably the second or third wealthiest family in an already wealthy neighborhood. Wealthy in terms of cash and things, not, so to speak, what went down inside of that house, as many of you know my story. So a lot of people assume that I wouldn't have, or that people who grew up with money wouldn't have a poverty mindset, wouldn't have limiting beliefs around money, wouldn't have money blocks because you had it. Totally 1,000% wrong. You could have been raised middle class. You could have been raised super poor. I know people who were raised poor that have amazing wealth mindsets. And likewise, people who are raised wealthy who have poverty mindsets. So here's how it happened in my case. So you can see how sneaky this stuff is. So I was raised by two entrepreneurs, but predominantly raised by, a single mom. And what I learned from her is what she told me. And she told me things like, money doesn't grow on trees. You have to give an arm and a leg in order to be successful in this world. And if you're a woman, you're going to have to cut off all your limbs. Like literally said things like that. And even more importantly, demonstrated it. So I watched my mom my entire life, without a doubt, work 10 to 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. We had 10 phone lines in my house growing up. And that was back in the day where the phones had that horrific ring, right? Where they had Well, there was cordless phones too, but most of them had like cords. And it was just craziness. It was craziness. It was nonstop. And we also had all the things, right? I mean, a lot of things. 2 chef's kitchens, a wine cellar bigger than most people's bedrooms, an Olympic-sized pool in the backyard that was 12 feet deep, right? So what did that show me? Well, that's true. What my mom is saying is true, right? She said she must know because look how successful she is. Look at all the things that we have and how many people admire her and admire us and gush over the house and all of this stuff. So that must be true, right? We don't have any reason as children or teens to really question necessarily our parents, right? That we're not equipped to do that. So I saw evidence. So a lot of you have seen evidence of this. Maybe you had parents that said things, or an uncle that was around a lot, or grandparents that were around a lot say things like, money's the root of all evil. Money just turns people into horrible human beings, right? And then they would point out people on the TV who were rich, who were like going to prison, or who were, rich and ended up murdering somebody on the news, right? And pointing that out because their belief was so strong in that money is evil that they ended up seeing evidence of that all around them because that's what's in the forefront of their consciousness. And then they point it out to you. It could have been like, someone in the neighborhood down the street, or there's something in the news about the rich street or the rich neighborhood. I swear, like, why does every city have like a rich neighborhood or a rich street? Like even the poorest of ghettos, there's like that one street that it's like, oh, damn, well, there's always someone who has the most, even if it's in an area where there's a lot of poverty. It's so funny how that is, isn't it? And everyone knows where the rich street is. And either you grow up in a place where it was like, that's, your parents or your caregivers were like, that's what I want for you. I want you to have that kind of wealth and you can do it and keep studying in school and be your, great self. And I want you to have that, I want you to live on that street, or I want you to have that house or whatever. And then there were many of us who were raised where there was like negativity around having money. In my case, it was miserable. You could have all those things, but there wasn't enjoyment in the things because you had to sacrifice of yourself. And given that I was abused severely for many years under that roof, what else do you think that told me, right? Oh my God, if you want to have like major wealth, you're going to end up neglecting your children. Bad things are going to happen. You're going to have to sacrifice your mind, body, and spirit. So of course I resisted bringing in any sort of money with ease. What did I end up doing? I ended up modeling exactly what I saw and exactly what I was taught and exactly what I believed, which is that money is really hard to make. You have to work your ass off. It's a big sacrifice. You have to cut off your arm and your leg in order to get it, right? And then what happened? I literally almost died from being a workaholic. I created such a health deficit from lack of true, proper self-care and rest, and just from pushing and grinding and hustling all the time, that I literally almost had cardiac arrest and died from it. And I'm still not 100% recovered, but I'm a million times better than I was, thank God. So do you guys see what I mean? How that can translate, even the things we observed, like it's bill paying time in your house or tax time. And just the vibe in your house that you picked up on. I mean, kids and teens are like sponges, especially those of you who now know you're empaths, you're intuitives, you're healers. You were really picking up on that as a kid, as was I. And it was like, I even remember when it was like more so invoicing time, since my mom, is an entrepreneur and with corporations. And I just remember, I mean, I think she would stay up till 3 a.m. doing these invoices. And I mean, she had a lot of employees. I mean, there are 50 solid full-time employees coming in and out of my house 7 fucking days a week, at least 50. I mean, it was craziness. And so what, I mean, I even saw like, wow, you know, my mom had all this help and she still had to work like this. So I modeled it until I got sick and I couldn't do it anymore. But then my belief became, oh my God, I can't push, force, grind, hustle anymore. I'm going to end up living in a tent. I'm going to lose it all. What am I going to do? And I had a choice to make. And thank God I had done enough work in recovery work, deep inner child healing work, trauma healing work, you name it. I had a spiritual guru for 8 years that I worked with privately because I was like, wait a second. Why can't it be done differently? Why can't I have great success, make great impact and great cash with ease and with joy and while putting my self-care first and my well-being as a first priority versus having to like exchange it like a token, right? I had to question my entire belief system that I had since birth, all of it. So that's the first thing in this special abundance igniting exercise that I'm teaching you today is you need to be willing to question even beliefs that seem like they are so factual to you. I still want you to question those because I could have had a line of 100 people, like the top Harvard professors and researchers saying to me, no, it doesn't have to be hard to make massive impact and money and have great success. That's not true. That is one way, but that's not the only way. I would have nodded my head politely, and then inside I'd be doing a giant eye roll, and then I would have walked away, and then my whole folder of evidence would have popped up, right? My whole history folder of evidence going, this person might be, credible, but they don't get it. They don't know fully what they're talking about. Like they've smoking too much ganj. Like they have no idea what's happening because when I take out my folder, right, I can flashes of my mom and all of the working, flashes of the lifestyle that we lived in. And then I picked up all this evidence in my adult life, right? I picked it all up in my adult life. I mean, I've interviewed former presidents of the United States, celebrities, top business owners as a newscaster. And I saw how hard they worked. More evidence for that evidence base to support that belief that I had. Right. Then I got into the pharmaceutical industry. So where all my clients and a lot of my friends were these well-known doctors. Well, for my medical professionals listening, shout out to you because there is a lot of sacrifice in going to medical school in terms of time. You can't have the same social life. A lot of you guys had to put off having kids. I mean, there is a lot of sacrifice that goes into that. Again, more evidence to support that belief. So I would have pulled up all of that and then negated what a highly credible person said. So the first thing I need you to do is some of these stuck beliefs that you have where you're like, you have to, money, the rich get richer and you have to have money to make money. In order to start a business, you have to have money to start a business. Or you have to have a lot of energy in order to be successful. That was another one I had. Or you have to have more time, or I'm too old now. Any of those things, any of them, need to be all up for grabs right now. And you need to be willing to do that for this exercise to work. They just need to be all up for grabs, no matter how much evidence you have in that bank, because I had tons and tons and tons, years and years and years of evidence in that bank for that belief that you have to like work your ass off and self-sacrifice in order to have the very things that you want in life. And it took me getting so sick where I almost died to go, wait a second. I'm not willing to live in a tent. I'm not willing to get rid of this lifestyle that I love in that sense and feel accustomed to, and, all the luxuriating things. So I went, well, wait a second. What if that wasn't true? So I want you then to look at that. That's part 2 of the exercise. What if insert belief, right? Because we all have multiple beliefs. So I want you to do this. If you don't have the energy to do it with all of them, at least do it with your top 2. Okay. So maybe it's that you have to have, be highly educated and be raised in a, business oriented family to be successful or something like that. Well, what if that wasn't true? What if that was actually an inaccurate belief that someone, projected on you, that you learned, and it's just not true? It's outdated, it's inaccurate, it's a bug in the system, just like a bug in the computer, and it's not true. So what if that wasn't true? Then what? If that wasn't true, does that mean you would go and start a business? If that wasn't true, does that mean you would write the book you've dreamed of writing? If that wasn't true, would you start a podcast? If that wasn't true, would you be able to show up on social media and be able to share your services and offerings with more confidence and less self-doubt? What if that wasn't true? What if that wasn't the case and it was simply a bug that was in the system? And because I don't want you guys to start like harping on yourselves and judging yourselves for believing and buying into something that's been accurate for, decades. That's not going to serve you. Okay. You picked it up very likely from childhood, someone close to you, a marriage, a long-term boyfriend, girlfriend, something like that. You picked it up. Society, right? There's a lot of fucked up cultural and even race-driven money beliefs that are inaccurate and are outdated. Maybe they were true at some point, right? Maybe they were true at some point. I work with a lot of people who are either first or second generation immigrants to the United States. And there's a definite common money block where it's like, well, immigrants have it harder. It's the struggle to find the American dream, and everyone's working against you, and it's going to be so hard, and very few people want to support you, and you have to prove yourself times 1,000, right? I do believe that was probably very accurate at some point in history. Absolutely. But today, that doesn't have to be true. That doesn't have to be true anymore. You have to be willing to let that go. I have no doubt that probably your parents who immigrated struggled, or their parents struggled. No fucking doubt whatsoever. But what are you getting out of it by holding on to it? Nothing. So what if that was an outdated belief or a bug in the system that was never true to begin with? Okay, depending on what your belief is. What would you do differently? What would you do differently? I asked myself this question. I remember where I was. I was laying on the chaise part of my couch in my former townhouse in LA. And that's where I spent a lot of time when I was sick, because I literally couldn't even stand to shower. I would sit on the floor of my walk-in shower to shower when I actually did shower. That's how bad my burnout was. But I said, what if that wasn't true? What if that's outdated and it's not true? What if? And I sat there and I went, well, if that wasn't true, then I would start ProjectME. Because remember, I had the idea, the name, the version of the logo, the mission for ProjectME for 10 years before I started it. And I said, well, then I would start ProjectME if I knew it could be fun and easy and exciting and interesting, and I could be successful at it while putting my well-being first. Then I would start it, because that was preventing me from starting it, because I was terrified. Why would I want to go into something that would suck more of my energy when I was already burnt out, and I didn't want to recreate all this again? Because my first company, how I did it, I created a self-imposed prison. And some of you listening have either begun to do that unknowingly, subconsciously, right? Or you have already done that. I can tell pretty quickly when I see someone even just like doing videos on Instagram. I can just tell energetically like they're in a self-imposed prison, right? They started their business, like many of you, right? You start your business to leave being an employee, so that you can have your own freedom of time, run your own thing, create your own thing, freedom of time, freedom of cash, all of it. And then it ends up sucking so much of your time and your energy that it's worse. It would be easier to go back to having a corporate job or being an employee somewhere. I know. I did that to myself. I didn't know any other fucking way. This is why I'm sharing this with you. This is why I had to start ProjectME. I had to pay it forward. I had to share with you guys all the things that I did wrong, all the things I've done right, so that I could help prevent you from either going down that path if possible. I could help reroute you, help get you there faster, easier, with more joy, with more fun, with more ease. So you need to question that belief and write down, well, what would I do? What would I do differently? What would I do differently knowing that's just a bug in the system or that it's outdated? Now, I didn't even write it down and it worked. So if you're someone where journaling gives you a rash, that used to be me most of my life. You don't have to write it down. I didn't even have the energy to write shit down at that point, and it still worked. So then the third part of this abundance igniting exercise I want you to do is say, okay, let's experiment. Let's have an experiment where we pick up and create a new belief that we wish is true. We don't know maybe that it's for sure true or not because it's new to us, right? It's new to your ego. It's new to your body, to your cells. But that we wish was true. We would like to believe is true. So using, myself as an example again, what I wished was true is that you could make great money and amazing impact and be highly successful with ease, joy, and fun. And I wasn't like, pie in the sky, right? Like in La La Land. Right? When I say ease, that doesn't mean things easy or without hard times or without putting in effort. But there's an ease and a flow to it because you're putting yourself first and honoring yourself first. Right? So I go, that's what I would love to be true. I would love that to be a true factual belief. I don't know if it is, right? But I would love for it to be. So what is that belief that you would love for it to be true? And don't like sabotage the exercise by going, well, that money does actually grow on trees and I can just go pick $100 bills off the trees in my backyard. Like, don't go into fantasy land on me. That's a way of that'd be sabotaging this exercise. So what is it? Is it that actually, using the immigrant example, is it that no, actually, if you are someone who is considered, ethnically diverse in the United States, there are actually more opportunities for you because there are a lot of special loan and grant programs. There's a lot of companies and other individuals right now that really want to showcase diversity and really put a spotlight on, shining the light on people who have immigrated to the United States and really want to do something for themselves, right? Maybe that's the belief that you want to be true. Maybe it's that you can be wildly successful starting at any age, starting at 60, starting at 20, starting at 15. There are no rules about age. You can be wildly successful if you don't look like everyone else, that you don't have to have a certain look. Right? So what is the belief that you wish was true? You don't know it to be true, but you wish was true. And then I need you to be willing to experiment with the energy of that. I'm not saying you're lying to yourself. I'm saying you need to be willing to experiment with the energy of it. So my example of, that you can be, successful and have amazing impact and make a, crap ton of cash while honoring yourself first with ease, joy, and flow. It doesn't have to be hustle, push, sacrifice, grind. So I was willing to experiment with it and go, okay, I'm willing to experiment. I am someone who, if you told me to experiment with something for 30 days, I'd roll my eyes. That's a long time for me. So I experimented just 1 week at a time. I'll do it for this week. Okay, I'm going to experiment with that I believe that's true. And that because I'm going to believe that this is true just for a week, now I need to start looking at supporting evidence that it's true. So I need to force myself to look for supporting evidence, not evidence that it's not true, because your ego is going to want to go there because it's been taught that for many, many years, even decades. You need to look for supporting evidence that it is true. And this one was, it was my toughest belief, you guys. I still have to put myself into check with this, but it fucking works. It's why I'm sharing this exercise. So I would go on when I was on social media. I would have to consciously do it because, my brain was trained to go the other way. So I would consciously look for people who genuinely seemed like they were successful and they were practicing self-care. They were really enjoying what they were doing. And I'd go, okay, there's someone. Maybe it'd be someone who I met at the gym. Maybe it'd be a stranger. Maybe it was someone on the news. Maybe it was someone on TV or on a reality show. Someone's, autobiography that I read. Someone on a podcast. So I had to keep going, okay, let's look at evidence. And I didn't want to believe it at first. My ego didn't want me to believe it. It wanted me to go back and believe my other one, right? And I had to keep bringing myself back. It's like, no, we're just experimenting. And we're just experimenting for a week. And if you want to go back to the other way that has basically almost killed you, that is not serving you in any way whatsoever and is causing a self-imposed prison and you to be absolutely miserable, and it's also the very belief that made you lose almost every single penny that you earned, sure, Tiffany, go back to that belief, right? You've got to call yourself out. So over that week, I started seeing evidence. I was like, oh, wow, this person really, followed their passion of baking. I'd see someone on the Shark Tank or something like that, and I'd go look them up. And it's like they followed their passion of baking, and then they developed these great muffin recipes. And now, they're making millions of dollars doing it while involving the family and helping the homeless. And I was like, wow, that is evidence, right? And I could just tell by their vibe, these people weren't run into the ground miserable. They had a lot of life in them. They had a lot of light in them. So that's what I want you to do. Maybe you are someone who can do 30 days at a time. I'm someone who's a week at a time. You might have to do 1 day at a time with this exercise. But you have to really be willing to throw out all the beliefs that you have around obtaining success and wealth and what those people are like who really get it. A lot of people think you have to be manipulative, sleazy, operate in the gray area, almost kind of like a narcissist, sociopath, scam type energy in order to be a millionaire. You have to be willing to do things that are not godly or aren't, spiritually sound or fully service-based, or you have to be really self-involved or be willing to step on other people's toes to climb your way to the top. And okay, so what if that belief was outdated or it just was never true and it's been a bug in the operating system? What if? Now what? Okay, write that down. And then I want you to go, what would be a belief that I wish was true? I wish it was true that people who were heart-centered and service-based, where money was so easily attracted to them and success came to them so easily so they can do more good in the world, and that it's the good people who got ahead, not the bad guys. Okay. Well, now you need to be willing to experiment and try that on for size and look for evidence that really good people do attract wild mass amounts of abundance. I mean, Oprah Winfrey, I don't know her personally, but she seems like a fantastic person. Look at all the good she's done. I think of Dr. Phil because at one point I had seen every single episode of his show for many years. I feel he's a great person and has done wonderful things in the world. I mean, there's a lot of people that we can put on this list that have done wonderful things in the world. And it seems like all they do is keep making more and more and more and more and more money. And they're giving back and giving back and giving back and giving back. So you need to create a new data bank to support this belief. I am gifting you guys something, and it is literally for this week only, and then it will be for sale. I created a digital affirmation card deck that is absolutely stunning. A graphic artist designed them. You will love them. And you can simply print out this deck at home. I highly recommend you print it in color. If you don't have a color printer, take it to like a Staples or take it to an office store that can print it in color for you. And there's 4 cards to a piece of paper to make it very easy for you to cut. And you can use them like a true card deck and pick your affirmation card of the day. You can hang them up in different places in your house, fold one, put it in your purse, put it in your wallet, put one in your car, because these affirmations are all around abundance igniting. So they're all around money and calling in what it is you want. And these are going to support you as you're doing this exercise. I highly recommend that whatever affirmation you pick for that day, that week, that month, that you repeat that affirmation at least 3 times a day, twice a day. And when you say the affirmation, I want you to really slow down enough where you feel it resonate through your body. So at least 3 times, twice a day. You'll obviously start to memorize them. And that's even more ideal because when you start getting stressed or you start seeing things that support your outdated beliefs and the beliefs that are bugs in the operating system, you'll be able to then just repeat that affirmation 3 times. I don't care if you have to say it 100 times a day. It's worth it. So to get this free affirmation deck, you simply go to projectmewithtiffany.com/free affirmation cards. projectmewithtiffany.com/free affirmation cards. If you're, you could be listening to this a year from now. So this offer expires October 5th, 2020. And then you will be able to purchase those cards. And we are working on right now creating an actual physical deck that comes in a box that will get sent to you, for a higher price point. So these are valued. The digital version is valued at $49, and I'm giving them to you for free. Trust me, you'll see when you download them how amazing they are. And I wanted to gift them to you with this episode so that you can use them together to really help remove those money blocks for good and ignite that abundance that you guys deserve. The catch is you've got to do some work for it, right? You've got to do some digging and be willing to try on different beliefs. I'm telling you, this is where the good stuff is at. This is life-changing. I'm sharing all of it with you today. I'm excited to see your card deck, so make sure you take a screenshot and share it. Also, you love this episode, take a screenshot, share it in Instagram stories, tag me at ProjectME with Tiffany, and let people know that there's an amazing freebie inside the episode, because I really want people to be able to get this for free, but it ends, like I said, this Saturday, October 5th, 2020. Wishing you guys great health, wealth, and worth as always. Love you.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please write a 5-star review on iTunes. Not only will this make me super happy, but it will allow more listeners to find our special show. Simply help me help others.